In the village of Korkuma, there lived a woman from whose shadow everyone fled, Nalia. She had a stomach used to hunger, hands cracked like an old wall, and torn clothes. At night she shivered with cold as raindrops dripped through the hole in the roof. But the real cold came not from her poverty, but from people's fear of her. This made him stay away from people even more. The village people considered him cursed. One night, there was a sharp knock on her door. Nalia jumped up in fright. Nalia was expecting no one, but when she opened the door, there stood a woman dressed in black silk, embroidered in gold. Her face was barely moving, her eyes like whispered secrets from the shadows. Nalia was frozen in place. "Don't be afraid, I have a proposition for you," she said. "And if you accept, you will never go hungry." The woman slowly raised her hand and dropped a bag of gold. Nalia's eyes widened. "Just collect the shadows for me," she said. "The more you bring, the more you win." Nalia did not understand. Collect the shadows? But the reality of the money did not make her hesitate. She nodded her head slowly. The next night, Nalia walked around the village with a lantern. Nalia now watched people's shadows as they slept. Where the moonlight hit the trees, a man's shadow fell long on the ground. Without a moment's thought, Nalia whispered, "Come with me." The shadows rippled like the wind, and his shadow left her. Now it curled in her palms like dancing smoke. Nalia collected more shadows every night, blinded by greed for money. Nothing seemed to have changed in the village, but some people felt tired in the morning, their memories blurred. They couldn't remember what they had seen in their dreams. But Nalia could see the difference. People were no longer as cheerful as before. Like Nalia, others could see that things in the village were not normal. Nalia was not the only one who noticed this. Mira, the field woman, noticed that people were turning pale. She started staying awake at night. One night, she looked out her window and saw Nalia. She had a slight smile on her face as she took the shadow of a man. Fear gripped Mira. The villagers were awakened by Mira's warning, but it was too late. The shadowless people had become forgetful, their bodies weakened. They no longer even remembered who they were. At night, Nalia filled her sack with shadows and fled into the forest, but there was a dark figure waiting for her, the woman who had made a deal with her. "Why are you running, Nalia?" she said. "You made a deal with me." "Remember that, Nalia." The woman's eyes glowed with dim light. Suddenly, the shadows Nalia had stolen behind her began to whisper. They all screamed in unison. Nalia crouched down in fear. The moment she touched the shadows, they touched her, and in a second, she too turned into a shadow. When morning came in the village, Nalia's house was empty. But the villagers whispered that something moved like a shadow on the walls at night. Her name still echoed in the wind. This is an African story about the terrible consequences of greed and making deals with dark forces.